For Billy Gibbons, one of the founders of the legendary rock group ZZ Top and owner of one of the most famous beards in the world, rock and roll fame has given him the chance to have fun with his favorite mode of travel, cars.
My personal passion for automobiles began before I can remember. To this day, my mom reminds me that before I could speak entire sentences, I could point to cars and call the names of the makes and models. So it started early. And, of course, growing up, listening to blues music and, you know, country and western, there's so much of a rich heritage connecting this loud expression and automobiles. It's a natural.
So much so that many of ZZ Top's videos have featured custom rides. And the group put together one of the most famous hot rods in both the music and car worlds.
That would be the Little Red Eliminator Coupe. It started off as just the desire to have a simple little red hot rod. After 5 years of sweat and toil and waiting, we came up with what the world now knows as part of the band. Its celebrity status has perhaps eclipsed our own in certain corners, but it's still fun and it's still one of our favorites.
But Billy's exuberance for cars isn't just for show in the band's videos. It's a serious part of his offstage life. For him, classic cars, like this one, are one of the most satisfying ways to get around.
So here what we have, of course, is what constitutes the classic hot rod, a 32 Roadster. This one, of course, done in a very traditional style, something that you might have found in 1940 or 41. And it represents that look, something that you would have found in the early days of hot rodding. Of course, without fenders, that was one of the first things to go was, let's get rid of these fenders, we'll lighten the load, get a little more speed out of it. The absence of the hood, of course, is more than just cosmetic. It, too, lightened the load. We've chosen to keep it pure Roadster by leaving the top off.
Billy doesn't just talk cars, although he certainly can go on about them. But the real thrill he gets comes from driving them. Of course, traveling like a rock star does have its road hazards. One of the problems with a car like this is that it doesn't always want to obey the traffic laws. And sometimes Billy just has to give it free rein.
I passed a friend driving another similar Roadster, and I took the chance on making a quick U-turn. I have to admit it was across 4 lanes, and of course I was pulled over right on the spot. And the first question was, what do you call that kind of a turn? I said, kind of like not legal. But it was so humorous for the moment. He said, okay, I like the car. Keep it in the lanes going that direction.
Of course, while being one of the most famous faces in rock can save you a ticket, having that kind of fun doesn't come cheap.
To get into a vehicle like this today, you're spending upwards of $150,000. 200 grand is nothing these days.
And that's where being a wealthy rock star comes in handy once again. Not only can you afford a car like this, you can afford a bunch of them. In fact, Billy's collected so many classics, he doesn't even want to guess how many he owns.
My accountant and advisor has wisely reminded me to forget about it. There's a lot. I've managed to amass a collection of automobiles that has now outgrown the residence. It's now choking the storage warehouse.
So he keeps some at one of Los Angeles' most famous customizing spots, the SoCal Speed Shop, including his latest traveling love interest, a coal black 1961 Cadillac Coupe de Ville.
Everybody loves this big crazy thing. It's such a boat. But once you get behind the wheel, because of the elegance of this expanse of flat panels. I would say this is probably one of the nicer examples from this period. This particular car, it's one of our favorites because everything works. We've got all original interior. Everything as you see it is how it was delivered from the factory. The nice two-tone steering wheel is still intact. The magic shift radio still works. AC blows ice cold. But one of my favorite features is this crazy thing, the old electric eye. This is what perceived the approaching car, and if your high beams are on, this took care of it. It took it from high beam to low beam and kept you from being anything short of courteous.
The Caddy only had 24,000 original miles on it. It's so pristine, Billy has to worry about where he drives it. A typical parking lot door dent would be a disaster for a beauty like this. It's sort of the vintage car version of all dressed up and nowhere to go.
You gotta be careful when you gotta go to the grocery store. You gotta be careful when you pull up to the curb. But it's just a blast. It's just something to have fun in. Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. Muy bonita.
Obviously, with Billy Gibbons, having fun while you go from point A to point B is always the order of the day.